Welcome to the first lecture in the introductory Python programming course. I'll be introducing you to everything you need to know in Python programming language. Let us briefly review the history of Python programming language. Python is an interpreted high-level general-purpose programming language. Its design philosophy emphasizes code readability with its use of significant indentation. Its language construct, as well as its object-oriented approach, aim to help programmers write clear logical codes for small and large-scale projects. It was created by Godovan Rossum on February 20th, 1991, and it is compatible with Windows, Linux, and Mac. To download Python, you go to the official website, which is www.python.org, or you can simply Google search Python. Okay, so you click on the first one, which is www.python.org, and you click on downloads. Then it takes you to the download section and you click on the latest version of download, or you can select your type of OS to download the version that is compatible with your OS. So you click on download, and after downloading Python, the installation is very straightforward. And if you encounter any difficulty installing it, YouTube has a lot of resources that can help you to successfully install Python on your computer. So the next thing you're going to be needing for this course is the IDE. For this course, we are using PyCharm. So to download PyCharm, you can Google search PyCharm community. So you are downloading the community version of PyCharm. So here you can see you have the option to download either the professional or the community version. So for those who would be able to pay the fee, you can download the professional version, but for people who won't be able to pay that, you can simply download the free community version. So after downloading the community version of PyCharm, the installation is very simple, and if you encounter any issues installing PyCharm, you can check YouTube. YouTube has a lot of resources for downloading and for installing PyCharm on your PC. After installing PyCharm, you can launch the application, and this is how the interface looks like. This is where you are going to be writing majority of your codes, and this is where you are going to be running your codes, and this is where it is going to be displayed. This is called the terminal. So the first thing every beginner learns to do in Python is to print hello world. So you simply print hello world by typing print, then open a bracket, and there you put a quotation mark and type hello world. Then to run, you can just simply click on this, and you can see it on your terminal. Boom, hello world. So you have printed your first line of code, which is hello world. Let me break down what you've just typed. Print is a kind of command in Python which tells Python to display whatever is written inside these brackets in the terminal. So you can see that we've displayed hello world in terminal. So why you need to put it in quotation is that hello world is a kind of string. We are going to be covering strings under data types. Let us get down to the objective of today's course, which is variables and data types in Python programming language. What are variables? Variables are used to store data in computer programs so that they can be referenced or changed. You can think of a variable like as a house. In a house stores your belongings. So that means the variable is the house and the value are your belongings that are inside the house. So that is what variables do in programming language. They help you to store information so that they can be referenced or changed. For example, let's create a variable greeting is equals to good morning. So when we call on greetings here, so I already told you that print is a kind of magical word which tells Python that when you see print, display whatever is inside the brackets at the terminal. So let's just call print greeting. So when I run this code, we can see it prints good morning. Why? Because good morning is stored in the variable greeting. So I don't need to call good morning to type good morning again. I just call the variable greeting and good morning shows up. So this is what variable does for us in programming language. For example, we can remember those times in school when they say x is equals to 5. So x is a variable because it stores the value 5. So when I say print x now and I run this code, Python displays 5 because 5 has been assigned to the value to the variable x. To assign variables in Python, you use the equal to sign. You can see that we used x is equals to 5, which means wherever you see x, Python refer to 5. So equal to is an assignment operator in Python programming language. So you can also assign other things. You can assign name is equals to demystified. And when you print name, you have demystified in the terminal. Naming variables is one of the easiest tasks in Python, but even as easy as it is, it has some convention. There are some rules to naming variables in Python programming language. For example, a variable can begin with an underscore. So you can say underscore name is equals to demystified. And when you say print underscore name, it prints demystified and in the terminal. A variable is case sensitive in Python programming language. For example, capital letter N in name. When you use capital letter N in name to mean demystified, and then you say print small letter n name, when you print this, it throws an error in Python programming language. It says name is not defined. Even though it is the same word name, Python is case sensitive, so the title case name is not the same thing as the lowercase name in Python programming language. Then the third rule is that a variable cannot begin with a number. For example, when you say one name, print one name, you can see it throws an error in Python programming language because it says invalid syntax because a variable cannot begin with a number. Then the another rule is that a variable cannot have space bar. You can't use a space in variable. You want to say my name, so print my name. You can see it throws an error, invalid syntax, because you cannot use spacebar in naming variables. Instead, you can use an underscore. So my underscore name, then you say print my underscore name. Can you see? So now it prints demystified at the terminal. So these are the major rules in naming variables in Python programming language. Also, there's another rule which says you cannot use you cannot use some specified words in naming variables. These words are called keywords in Python programming language. So there are lots of them. To access the keywords in Python programming language, you can simply type help and then you put in brackets in quotation keywords. When you run this, you can see the keywords that you can use for naming your variables. So I'm going to provide this for you in the description, in the video description. You can read more on keywords in Python programming language. So now we are going to be getting things interesting. You've learned how to assign values onto variables, and you've also learned how to print variable values in the project terminal. So now I want you to create a variable name and type your name inside. I am demystified. Sorry. So print your name at the project terminal, and let's see what it says. It says demystified. We are going to be doing something more interesting in Python programming language. As you know, programming is all about receiving information, data from users, processing the data, and then throwing out an information. So you are going to learn how to receive information from users, store it in a variable, and then you display it on the screen on the Windows terminal. So I'm introducing you to another command, which is called input. So what input does is that it collects information from users and store them in the variable name you assigned it to. So let's say name is equal to input. So input calls for a prompt, and the prompt is just like, what should it request from, what is the data to be entered into the terminal. So let's say enter your name. So when you run this code, it says enter your name. Can you see? So when you type your name into this, it automatically, you can open the terminal and type your name. So I am demystified, and when you press enter, it terminates running the code by process finished with exit code 0, which means there's nothing to run in this code again. So the value it received, it is storing the value inside the variable name. So let's do another thing by printing the value it has received. So run this code one more time, and now you can say I am demystified, and when you press enter, it prints demystified. What it does is that it receives the value that the user enters and then assigns it to the variable name, and then prints the variable name. So we are going to be doing something different now, and that's, we are going to be creating a storyline, and we are going to be needing the user's name and their age. Let's create another variable. Age is equals to input, enter your age. So now we are creating a story, and this will teach you how to concatenate strings. So now we are creating the story. Once upon a time, there was a boy or a girl. There was a boy named. So to concatenate strings, you use the plus. There was a boy named, the name, then you add it to, and he was added to age, years old. So when you run this code now, you see enter your name, I am demystified. Enter your age, I am 15. and you can see the storyline. Once upon a time, there was a boy named Demystified. Okay, we need to adjust something here that's around this. So before you start and you can put a space bar, and then to make this look better, you can just insert a space bar. So run this code once again. So what is your name? I am Demystified. It looks better now. And then I am 15, or you can say I'm 21 years old. So once upon a time, there was a boy named Demystified, and he was 21 years old. So clap for yourself. You are making tremendous progress. So now I will introduce you to data types in Python programming language. So earlier in this video, I was telling you about why we use quotation marks in Python programming language. I told you something about strings. There are actually 4 basic data types, although there are more, but the 4 basic ones you are going to be using as a beginner is strings, floats, double, and integers. Strings are kind of like you are making your own statement and telling the computer not to tamper or to try to understand what you're trying to say. So once a computer receives a string, it does not bother itself about understanding what the string is saying. It simply displays everything as it is written inside the quotation marks. So the strings is actually something like a text in Python programming language. So the second data type, which is the integers in mathematics, same thing as the integers in mathematics, which is whole numbers. It can be positive numbers or negative numbers. Then the floating point numbers, these are decimal numbers. They can also be positive or negative. And the complex numbers, which have the real parts and the imaginary parts. So now we are going to be doing something that is very interesting. We are going to be receiving the age from the user and then checking what format or what type of what data type was returned from did Python give us after we received the name and the age. So now I want to print. So there is another function I'm introducing you to, which is called the type. So what type basically do is that type helps you to display the kind of data type you are working with. So print type of name. Then you can also print type of age. So when you run this, you can say, okay, demystified, and now the age is 21. So you can see it says the name is a string and the age is also a string. So data types in Python or in any programming language helps the programming language to understand the kind of functions it can, or the kind of operations it can perform on that specific variable. So for strings, no one will send you to, it is impossible to add strings except when you are concatenating. It is impossible to multiply strings. It is impossible to subtract. It is impossible to divide or find the modulus. So the operations you can carry out on strings are basically the things you can do on a string. I'm going to be teaching you on the operations which you can perform on a string in a moment. So now you are going to be introduced into typecasting in Python programming language. So the age we received was a string. We need to convert it to an integer type so that we'll be able to work with it or we can, so that we'll be able to work with it. So now what we are going to be doing is we are going to be changing the storyline. The storyline is just going to ask for your date of birth, and then it is going to calculate your age. So the story is going to say, once upon a time there was a boy named Name, and he was age years old. So now we are editing the story to say he was born in year. So now we are creating another variable which says in year 2000, okay, in year string of, okay, in year 2021 minus age, minus DOB. Let's change this variable name to DOB. So enter your date of birth or year of birth. So why it is throwing up an error is that you have to convert it to a string. So I'm going to teach you what I did now, minus DOB. So as I said earlier, that you can perform, you have to convert this to an integer before. So okay, as I said earlier, you can perform a subtraction, addition, and things like that on a string. So when you run this, it throws up, okay, after running, I'm demystified, date of birth, maybe 2015, and can you see it throws up an error because it says unsupported operand types for int and string. So what that basically means is that date of birth, DOB, is a string, and we are trying to subtract a string from 2021. Just trying to say you are subtracting a text from 2021. So you have to convert what is received here into an integer before you can use it to, before you can run this kind of operation. So what we can do is just, so to convert it into an integer is just call the function int before calling the function input. So you are closing the brackets. So when you call the function int, what it does is just, it receives a string, it casts it into an integer. Now let's print the type of date of birth, DOB, before we then use it in this function. So now let's run this. What is your name? I'm demystified. Then your birth year, that's 2015. Then okay, sorry, we are printing the type of DOB. So you can see, once upon a time there was a boy named demystified. Okay, let me remove the comma. Demystified, and he was born, oh sorry, and he is okay, so we add this years old. So add a space bar before this, and now let's run this again. So instead of having to run with this, you can just press Shift F10 on Windows to run this. So enter your name, I'm demystified. Then your birth year, that's 2000 and maybe 17. And then can you see, print the type of date of birth. So date of birth have been changed to an integer before it then runs it here. So it says, once upon a time there was a boy named demystified, and he is 4 years old. So after performing this operation, we converted it back to a string. so that it can be added to our the fellow strings. So what concatenating a string basically does is it just matches up the different strings together. You are going to create a program which is going to receive two values from the users, and then it is going to provide the sum of the values in the terminal. So something like x is equals to integer of inputs, enter first inputs, so then spacebar, then y is equals to integer of inputs, enter second value, then print x plus y. So what this does is shift F10, it receives the first input 12 and the second input 4, it prints 16. So what you are going to be doing is then create a calculator which receives two inputs from a user and then throws the or provides the difference between the two values at the terminal below. So see you in the next video. Please don't forget to like my videos, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. See you in the next video. Thank you.